Okay, well, let's call the meeting to order at 1:02 p.m. and very much appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to read our opening script. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded in accordance with the Maryland Open Meetings Act to ensure transparency and public access to the proceedings. All attendees are considered to have consented to being recorded by participating in this meeting. Rachel will do a roll call by agency just to see who we've got here represented, and then we will get into the meat of the meeting.
Great. So I'll start with Department of Planning. Is Debbie?
Yes, I'm here representing Secretary Flora.
Great, thank you. From Department of Health, do we have Michelle Monared? And if not, is there an alternate from the Department of Health? Okay, we'll move on. From DNR, Paul?
Secretary Kurtz on.
Or is he? Oh, great. Sorry. What's that?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Kurtz. From MDE, oh, Suzanne is here. Thank you for joining us, Suzanne.
Thank you.
From
Hello.
Commerce.
Joe Malone is here, Agricultural
Hi,
Programs
Joe.
Manager.
Thank you, Joe. From UMD College of Ag and Natural Resources, do we have Dean Powers or Darren with us today? Okay, we'll move on. From UMC's, do we have Dr. Morales Wilhelm or Dave? No? From MSDE.
Hi there, this is Leslie Sessom Parks. I'm here, and I think Julie Fletcher may be on the call as well.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. From Aging, do we have Latanya or Secretary Wilkes with us? Okay. From DHS, do we have Eugenia or any other representative from DHS? Okay. From MEA. Gary?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Gary Aim, representing MEA.
Good afternoon, Gary. Thank you.
You're welcome.
From MDEM, Secretary Strickland or Anna?
Hi, it's Anna Lefebvre. I'm here on behalf of Secretary Strickland.
Thank you, Anna. And from Labor, I believe Anupa is joining us today.
Yes, Anupa Kivargi is here on behalf of Secretary Wu.
Thank you. That's all of our agency members. Do we have any other agencies represented today that I did not call on? Okay, thank you.
Do you want to read the appointed members as well?
Sure. For membership, from the Ag Commission, Amy Crown. Okay, Suzanne Richards? No. Angelica? MML? What about Stephanie Jones from Makeup? Do we have Joshua Parker from Rachel?
Josh is here. Josh is here.
Thank you, Josh. Jenny Dempsey from.
Hello, good afternoon.
Thank you. Maryland Farm Bureau, Joanne Chasen.
I'm here.
Thank you, Joanne. Do we have Kelsey Keatle from RMC? Okay. Heather Bruskin. Katie Stevens. Ashley Drakeford. Steve McHenry. Megan Todd. Alice Chalmers. Nancy Nunn.
Here.
Thank you, Nancy. Jessica Richards
She's not gonna make it.
and Kelly Dudek. I see.
I'm here. Kelly's here. On the road, but here.
Thank you, Kelly.
Do you have folks in the waiting room?
Secretary Addix, this is Suzanne Dorsey. I just want to let you know that I have Dr. Cliff Mitchell from the Department of Health sitting with me.
But not under duress. Just so we're clear, it's entirely voluntary.
I'm not sure about that. We'll need third-party confirmation.
If you need to send the state police, it's 1800 Washington Boulevard.
Yes.
Okay, I see that many of the folks that we just called on have just entered the meeting.
Well, for efficiency purposes, if you've just entered the meeting, if you could add your name and who you're representing in the chat, and Rachel will take note. And once we're sure we have a quorum, we can do the actual business of approving minutes. But before then, let's, if possible, let's review some of the items that GICA has accomplished and the work of our members have accomplished. First, just a quick review of the mission, as we always do. The vision for 2026 and mission is the commission shall work to promote the economic profitability of agriculture in the state by ensuring that all appropriate state agencies work in a cooperative, coordinated manner and with local government and industry groups in planning, implementing, overseeing, and evaluating intergovernmental initiatives related to agricultural affairs in the state. That is the state-ese as to why we are here. Would love to just review a few of the successes of GICA over the last few months. First of all, I have to give a note of appreciation to all of our partners and agencies for dedicating and engaging with us, not only in these official GICA meetings, but the committee meetings, which have come to be very productive, and they have been the building grounds for some really interesting policy revisions and some legislation. And it's important that these are ongoing conversations because we've got an industry that is ever evolving. Throughout the GICA meetings in 2025, we discussed a diverse range of priorities and challenges in the agricultural space, and you all carried on that mission, and for that we are grateful. Some of those items, we discussed ongoing challenges for agritourism operations around the on-farm food service licenses, and MDH, thank you Cliff and team, took this to heart and proposed House Bill 272 to help overcome that challenge. We also discussed the challenges of wildlife pressures on agricultural land, and DNR worked very closely with Delegate Boyce to propose an omnibus deer management package that kept agricultural management options as a key priority. So Secretary Kurtz and team, thank you very much for that. We also discussed the impact that the lapsed CAFO permit had on Maryland's poultry industry, and MDA, thank you Suzanne, and Secretary McElwain came to the table in support of legislation that would allow construction of new poultry houses during a lapsed permit if that were to ever occur again. We also discussed PFAS and the careful regulation of these forever chemicals on Maryland land, and the General Assembly passed thoughtful legislation in support of this. We also discussed the needs of value-added agricultural operations, which tend to be rather unique on farms. And MDE worked closely with MDA to support the legislation that helps to provide relief and transparency for agricultural operations and stormwater management That was a tricky one. It involved local controls as well. So Suzanne and team, thank you very much for engaging in that discussion. GICA also has proven that it's a vessel for interagency cooperation to ensure that we are putting food on the table and supporting the farmers who make that happen. Agricultural continues to be #1 commercial industry in Maryland. And that's really exciting. And it's through the partnership of the agencies and member organizations that help us help make agriculture stronger for the people of Maryland. But as you could imagine, it's a continuing conversation. The work is not done. I'm not going to say it's never done because there are high hopes that we can disband, but there's always something new with this evolving industry. The system, the agricultural system, continues to be under extreme pressure. And right now, there's unsustainably high input prices due to external variables, international conflicts, tariffs, ongoing issues for years. Think about Ukraine, recent issues, the Strait of Hormuz. Unsustainably stagnant commodity prices remain a significant issue that I'm not sure any of us can solve, or we would have, but that's also what forces us to think differently on how to support the industry who may have excess products and be tied to international commodity markets. Also, we've got a multi-year drought. We've got a challenging economy. We had a supremely warm March that gave signals to a lot of our perennial crops that it was time to wake up. And then we had a once-in-a-generation truly devastating freeze on April 21st, which knocked back a number of our orchards across the state and our vineyards, with some reporting that they will produce 0 grapes and thus 0 wine from Maryland fruit this year. So with all of that, we've got millions and millions of dollars of economic hardship atop the industry right now. And we as state agencies, and obviously the member organizations here, have an opportunity. But I would think more than that, we've got a responsibility to our farmers and our citizens to do everything in our power to step up and support Maryland businesses and to get us in a place where we can be a little more resilient as the seasons go on. As we continue to see impacts of that freeze, the April 21st freeze, come to light, we are learning more every week about the devastation that has caused. We've been working closely with USDA Farm Service Agency to evaluate resources for farmers impacted by the freeze. The Farm Service Agency submitted a secretarial disaster designation to request to USDA that we now need them to adopt and enact. But we had partnership with the Maryland Farm Bureau, Governor Moore and the full administration, and the entire Maryland congressional delegation have all chimed in to support this disaster declaration. MDA has also joined with the state agriculture secretaries throughout the Mid-Atlantic, from New York and New Jersey down through Virginia, to send a request to Congress to request appropriation through USDA to provide direct and targeted financial assistance to farmers impacted by these ongoing climate impacts on agriculture. This freeze was unprecedented, but this type of request for acute situations is not. Finally, Governor Moore issued a directive on May 29th, which requires agencies to evaluate opportunities to step up and support the agricultural sector even further. Number one, MDA will be waiving a 51% Maryland product requirement for Class 4 wineries. That's in statute, and we do have the ability to waive it by winery. The governor has directed us to waive it by industry. Second, MDA has been tasked with developing an irrigation task force to support farmers in evaluating climate mitigation opportunities in drought conditions. Research is coming on that is showing that one of the reasons, in addition to it just being a bad freeze, one of the reasons why the effects were so devastating is that many of the plants, the orchards, the vines, had been through a season or two of severe drought. And so those vines would have been weakened over the years. And so this freeze was just an additional circumstance which caused, in many cases, irreparable damage. Number three, developing a producer education and risk management task force to support and elevate programs that are designed to help farmers mitigate these types of events in the future. Next, all in the governor's directive, work closely with Marbidco to consider opportunities for financing and grants that help farmers to get back on their feet. Next, work with our Maryland institutions to ensure that we are truly meeting our 20% purchasing goals and supporting farmers directly through local food procurement. Why is that important now? It's important always, but especially now as farmers have lost a significant amount or percentage of their crops. Think the table crops, and obviously I've referenced orchards and vineyards a number of times, but a lot of the vegetable crops as well were hit hard in addition to some of the commodity crops. Any remaining crops, we want to make sure that farmers are selling out. That will help support them through this, what will be a rather desolate financial time over the next year. And finally, there is a directive for MDE to prioritize and streamline water appropriation permit applications for our farmers. And we've already spoken with MDE, and that is well underway. So thank you for that. And finally, GICA, it comes back to us in this body, has been charged with assessing how state and local regulatory agencies can better support the affected agricultural sectors. And with that, I would ask agencies to provide, I would ask that agencies provide a report to MDA, got my words and agencies mixed up here, opportunities that support agriculture, that reduce red tape and prioritize our agricultural sector in our engagements ahead of the next committee meeting of this commission. So you will see an email from us coming out just asking for every agency to come back with a list of opportunities there for supporting agriculture, reducing red tape, and prioritizing our agricultural sector in your various engagements. So we will, in advance of our next meeting, develop a list that we can work off of as kind of a whole of government here, just to make sure that we're setting these things up. Many of these, my sense is, are ongoing. Our agencies are already working on these. I know MDH is, I know MDE is. We would appreciate getting that itemized list just so that we can track it, incorporate your updates over the next committee meetings and member meetings to get that back to our governor. In lighter news, on the workforce development front, the Maryland Horse Foundation, in partnership with the Horse Industry Board and University of Maryland Equine Studies, is proud to announce 6 participants have been selected for the 2026 Maryland Horse Career Program, taking place right now, or actually just wrapping up. So very, very excited about that. We've got some other really positive updates. It's not all doom and gloom as we go through this. Normally on the agenda, we would jump to subcommittee updates, but because of that pesky legislative session, we did not have subcommittees meet during session in between our 2 meetings. So we can forego subcommittee updates, but we can use this time to discuss some priorities for the next meetings. I know we've got some of our staff coordinators here who can review some of the subcommittee goals. We could also open this up if there's any discussion for any of the items just mentioned related to the governor's directive, since we do have some homework. Okay, seeing, we can jump to Harrison on environment and natural resources.
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Harrison Palmer, Chief of Staff, Department of Agriculture. Looking forward to the subcommittee meetings throughout this year, and we'll go through a revised meeting schedule at the end of this meeting, and we'll have calendar updates shared with everybody by the end of the week. But one of the continuing conversations we'll have in light of the new CAFO permit that has come out, we'll be looking at ways that we can help support MDE and the CAFO permitting process, really collaborating on resources to streamline those applications, but seeing where we can do some cross-pollination to continue to support the backlog that has come in and will continue to come through moving forward. And then also, I think looking at engaging MDE around the conversations that came out of the governor's initiative on water appropriations and streamlining those permits as well. We're open to those conversations, and I think that this will be a good body to continue that discussion. I would invite MDE or DNR to contribute in other priority topics we can work through today or ahead of the next subcommittee meeting if we want to have a pre-meeting to discuss some of those priorities, as well as in encapsulating some of the conversations with our industry partners for those specific topics.
See Suzanne.
Yeah, Secretary Addicks, just want to mention sort of a through point that a number of us are working on permit modernization, streamlining, and a lot of that involves not just IT tools. There's a lot more to it than that, but also IT tools. And what we're learning at MDE is that standardizing data and finding ways to share data actually results in streamlining and interagency engagement. So that may be an area that I'm interested in working with Department of Agriculture and of course others on having good conversations about how we have a data strategy that allows for better engagement and coordination.
Great. I appreciate that. Secretary Kurtz.
Yep, I just wanted to flag I know we've an ongoing partnership about this, but continuing to look at DNR lands and how we can better activate them for a diversity of agricultural needs across the state, particularly thinking about some grazing opportunities that might be coming down the pike in the coming couple years. So I think that's something, and Harrison, I know you've been plugged in with the team on that. And a big thank you to MDA for helping us rethink our leasing approach. So appreciate that and look forward to continuing to work on that with you all.
Well, there's a lot of excitement in the industry about that, particularly from new farmers and particularly from farmers that are coming to the industry brand new, that have no modern history or legacy, although families and histories and traditions they are revitalizing. So the opportunity of leasing state land, and you have got some amazing potential farmland to lease. So I appreciate all the work on that. It's going to be exciting to see what happens.
Secretary, I think it's worth mentioning too that the renewed leasing agreements that Secretary Kurtz was mentioning, as well as the LEAF program stemmed out of the Governor's Bay Legacy Act that passed in 2025. We'll be excited to share updates on the LEAF program at the subcommittee meeting as well, as that is now fully up and on its way through development. We're hoping to have several preliminary farms LEAF certified for a test pilot in the coming month. So we'll have plenty of great updates to share at the next meeting. And Secretary, I know on your side for the leasing opportunity as well. Really great to see both of those things come into light out of that legislation.
Excellent. Okay, Harrison, good?
Yeah, I think I'll good on the environment and natural resources front.
Okay, I would jump to labor, education, and development. That would be Rachel.
Sure. So good afternoon. One of the things that the Labor, Education, and Development, or LAD subcommittee is going to be focusing on is reviewing the Family Act that just passed for its impact on agriculture. And so that's something we'd like Maryland Department of Labor to take the lead on and prepare for the next subcommittee meeting to give us a presentation on that so we can workshop any particular challenges or preparations that need to be made for the agricultural industry to prepare to adhere to that new laws that comes online. We'd also like to review the heat stress standards and consider some agricultural exemptions. One of the things that we've done over the past couple of months is we've taken quite a few farm tours and we've engaged a lot with the ag community, and we're hearing particularly for some of our agritourism businesses that have, models that are much different from your traditional farm labor scheduling, where if you've got a group of, let's say, young people who are going to come in and perhaps they're only working a 5 or 6 hour shift, some of the heat stress standards have been difficult or challenging for some of the business owners to implement based on the scheduling of those seasonal workers. And so I know that's something that we'd like to discuss with labor and share some of the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of our agribusiness owners to see if there's any way that there can be some exceptions made for certain types of operations where it's difficult to fully adhere to those guidelines. And then the next item is one of the joint chairman resolutions that passed during the General Assembly's legislative session was that MDA needs to submit a report by December 1st detailing our agency efforts, including those of the Rural Maryland Council through the Rural Maryland Prosperity Investment Fund to support apprenticeship programs within the agricultural industry. And so we'll need to coordinate again with labor on collecting some of that data on existing agricultural apprenticeship programs, and also discussing what barriers or challenges there are to creating new apprenticeships and obstacles to scaling that up or down based on the size of the business. And so those are some things we'd like to begin coordinating with labor on in preparation for that report. And so we'd like to discuss that, and I'll send to the team at labor some of those things that are outlined in the JCR. Again, MDA will be responsible for submitting that by December 1st, but we will need to coordinate with labor to collect much of the information that's going to be due for in that report. And lastly, MDA is working with the Harry Hughes Center for Agroecology's Brinsfield interns to support the report and do research into successful programming. And we want to thank our GICA members, Nancy Nunn and Megan Todd, for their willingness to engage on that.
And welcome again, interns, to the call. Thank you for jumping on this afternoon.
Rachel, could I add one thing to that? Just since we're on Harry Hughes, they have released a really great report and series of recommendations on sustainable agriculture. And Nancy, would you want to take a moment just to give a highlight of that report?
Sure. Thank you, Secretary. It's actually a report it's called the Roadmap to Resilience, looking at strategies and also where gaps currently exist to help our agricultural community mitigate and also adapt to changing environment, the climate change. So one part of the report is based on scientific research, and the other was based on a lot of information, listening sessions held with the ag community. As a result, there are 13 recommendations. A number of them, well, they'll all require implementation, coordination between public-private partnerships. But I'm happy to share the report with all of you, and hopefully it will help us prepare for issues such as the recent frost.
Very much appreciate that. It's a great report, and if you've got an electronic version or a link to put in the chat, that'd be great, and we'll include it as well in the minutes. We very much look forward to supporting the work of that report. It is truly a roadmap, and I like it because it tells us what to do. And so it will be really, really good to incorporate that message of resiliency in all of our discussions as we present and speak with farmers. Resiliency can mean a lot of things. We're seeing resiliency in terms of what you grow, how you grow, resiliency through diversification. And we're having a lot of conversations with farmers because of the freeze about personal and financial resiliency. And just a quick note on that at my local farmers market. Well, Cliff, I should say my other local farmers market. I was at the 32nd Street Market and spoke with an orchardist there who, when I said, so how are you going to fare this year? And he said, quote, my wife and I are frugal, so I think we can get through 1 year. And that's with all of the crops being devastated. So he's working off of last year's apples and some imported plums, and then he'll be importing the rest and losing all the margin on that going forward. So it's financial, it's environmental, it's farming and all of that. So very much appreciate your support on that. Sorry to take over and jump in.
No, you're fine.
Anything else, Rachel?
No, it's all.
Okay, Martin, are you on? If so, the value-added agriculture and agritourism update?
I'm here. Good afternoon. So last GICA meeting, I believe we were able to offer the exciting update that the Department of Agriculture had finally published the statewide guidance document for value-added agriculture and agritourism. This was published back in October, basically reviewing existing processes and barriers to value-added agriculture and agritourism in the state. Many of last year's subcommittee discussions revolved around these challenges and a lot of creative solutions. With a handful of challenges and opportunities presented through the statewide guidance document, a lot of the conversations existing within the subcommittee were already paralleling some of what was recognized. A handful of action items already being addressed, and I won't dwell on those. I'm sure they'll be covered in agency reports. But obviously, the statewide guidance document and updating the statewide guidance document will continue to be a focal point as MDA continues to engage with the subcommittee. Our partners at MDH and MDE have been very, very responsive and collaborative, and we think that this is definitely a good core foundation for our action items. The next update would be at the end of this legislative session, the Joint Chairman's report requested that the Maryland Department of Agriculture, in consultation with the Maryland Department of Commerce, submit a report by the end of December 2026 on the potential economic and agricultural benefits of establishing a tax credit for manufacturers located in the state that are utilizing agricultural products in their manufacturing processes. So the report is intended to include an analysis of the potential impact of what a tax credit may look like and what it would look like on the demand for agricultural products from local manufacturers and the financial viability and growth of in-state agricultural producers, to include job creation, retention, and overall economic benefit for the agricultural industry in the state. Also, it would look at a review of similar tax credit programs, benchmarks, and standards in other states, including best practices and other options for what a tax credit structure could theoretically look like, as well as an estimate of the fiscal impact. So that's obviously something that will be worked on between the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Commerce, but frequently brought up and discussed through subcommittee to continue the engaged conversations. And we would be remiss if we also didn't give a shout out to the Harry Hughes Center for Agroecology's Brinsfield interns for their willingness to support us through the development of that report and data collection. So double shout out, Harry Hughes Center for Agroecology. I think that does it for value added, Mr. Secretary.
I appreciate that. Amy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Crone. I'm currently serving as the chair of the Maryland Ag Commission, and I also wanted to bring to the group as part of this portion of the agenda today that we adopted in December a definition of agriculture that we want to share with this body for everyone to review. And then the two paths forward for it would be one, agencies could consider adoption via regulatory changes or updates. And then second would be having this body recommend that MDA take up legislation to add it into COMAR at the state level. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of those pieces, please, Harrison, but we'll be sure to share out the definition with everyone. And then perhaps as part of the next round of subcommittee meetings, maybe that would be added to everyone's agenda to then bring back to the group what each subcommittee prefers in terms of next steps and how to move that forward. But I think we ended up in a good place and we were very happy to have that approved by the Ag Commission to share with you all.
Thanks, Amy. I'm happy to share that with everybody ahead of the next meeting, just so that everyone's got it in writing.
Thank you.
We can skip the shock and awe that we do not, in fact, have a definition of agriculture in the state, and determine as a group whether or not we need to move forward with that definition. So I appreciate the crafting of that. I know there was some quite intense wordsmithing, so thank you. Okay, with that, I believe we are at the point in the agenda for agency updates. Let's go by show of hands. You want to raise your hand if you'd like to give an update. Dr. Cliff Mitchell. You're still on mute, sir.
The dreaded double mute. I take it you can hear me now.
Yes.
All right. A couple of things, as you alluded to in your opening remarks, the Department of Health did file and the legislature enacted and the governor signed HB 272, House Bill 272, which redefines the on-farm retail food service license, removing the 30-day with 2 renewal periods and making it an annual license. And the legislature prescribed a process for us to work with stakeholders in crafting regulations to go into effect by the time of the effective date of the statute, which is January 31st, 2027. To that end, I've put in the chat our webpage for the regulations development process. That's you. If you scroll back up, you'll find that there on our website. And we have a whole series of virtual and in-person meetings scheduled across the state, which are listed on that page, along with ways for people to contact us, both to stay abreast of the regulations development process and also to register for the meetings. So I would certainly encourage everyone in this meeting to take a look at that, because you are obviously all stakeholders in this process. And our first meeting, actually, we are kicking off the discussion on Monday, June 15th from 9:30 to 11 with a virtual meeting where we're going to discuss the whole process of regulations development. We're working very closely, obviously, with Harrison and Martin and the Department of Agriculture, as well as the Department of Environment, to ensure that we are all in lockstep as far as these regulations and the crafting of regulations. The Department of Environment is underway with septics and water. And we have a series of hot topics meetings in July and August. And then we will do in-person regional meetings in Harford County on June 22nd, in Western Maryland, Washington County on July 7th, and then in Somerset County on July 20th. And then finally, St. Mary's County, I believe, is August 6th, with our final meeting being virtual on August 10th. The reason for this is obviously we're on a very tight timetable to meet our January 31st deadline. And Mr. Secretary, certainly we would be happy, very happy, extremely happy, more than happy to join you, Harrison and Martin, if you're having comparable discussions with the Farm Bureau or others and would like to have us there. We really want to make sure that we get a lot of input from the agriculture community as part of this discussion. So please feel free to invite us to any and all of the places where you're going to be discussing the on-farm retail food service license, or where you think it would be appropriate to have us.
We appreciate that offer, and that would be excellent.
And Dr. Mitchell, just to jump in and sort of elaborate on that point, I know we had mentioned earlier that we'll talk through some of the remainder of the dates planned for the GICA meetings this year. But one of the concepts that we've been considering is doing a GICA tour, similar to what we've done with the Maryland Ag Commission, going out to a handful of different farms we've experienced sort of those firsthand challenges with all of our agencies, whether it's MDA, our partners over at MDE, MDH, et cetera, to sort of talk through and give some perspective and scoping to the conversations that we had here. It would be a great opportunity, I think, on the full scale front to have everybody together for these. But most certainly to your point specifically, we'd be happy to bring you out to a lot of these conversations we're having in the interim.
No, very much appreciate that, Harrison, and we would be delighted to. I would be delighted to come, and I think the rest of the staff would as well.
All right, farm tour it is. Okay, my eyes are straining, but I think next up is Leslie from MSDE.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Secretary Harrison, and good afternoon, and committee members. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to make a brief announcement. So the contractor to develop the technology for the local food exchange, or LFE as we call it, has finally been selected. And as you know, LFE is the online ordering system for local producers to supply food to schools and other agency buyers. This system is also referred to in the legislation that was enacted in December, known as the Local Food Purchasing Program. So we are moving forward, and an RFP for the producers will also post approximately in September. And producers will have approximately 90 days to respond so they can be included in the database of this system for a period of 5 years. Excuse me, we expect that the launch will be in in the summer of next year. And the other thing I wanted to mention about producers, once they are in that system, it's a state contract, and they'll be able to then supply to any of the participating LEAs that are also ordering through that system. And yeah, as I mentioned, we expect a launch next summer. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Progress.
Yes.
Okay, next up, I believe, is Joanne Chasen.
Hi, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm going in proper order or not, but first of all, on behalf of Maryland Farm Bureau, we want to thank the governor and everyone who has been working towards getting the individual counties, well, from what I hear, it should be the entire state, to be considered a disaster for the frost damage that we had. The impact of this is going to be unreaching, and for some producers, I mean, we're talking flowers and fruit and all kinds of things. So, and the lands, nurseries also. So this impact could be very long-reaching. We're not just talking a year or two. It could actually go on for an extended period of time for those individuals, for what they've lost, or those individual operations. Secondarily, I know we have touched on the heat stress issue a few times, and from personal experience, from someone who grew up baling hay, if you've ever heard that you have to make hay when the sun shines, the best time to make hay is when it is hot and dry. And this heat stress standards make it not just for that, but for produce and, you know, crop harvesting, produce, fruits, things like that, where you're on difficult terrains and trying to move shade structures and things like that. It's going to be very difficult. I know that Rachel spoke about some of the agritourism and the issues that they're having with it. So we would like to, we're looking on how can we move forward to ensure that there is an ag exemption. We're familiar that with the federal OSHA standards, historically there's a limit for small farms that are 10 employees or less. So, you know, something along those lines would be very helpful. But I guess Maryland Farm Bureau is looking for ways to help ensure that we can move forward to secure an ag exemption for those standards.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will say that all of our drought and freeze disaster requests are statewide.
Yeah, and I understand it has to come from the federal government, but anything we can do, if we can be of any further assistance, we've reached out to Secretary Rawlings also, but we need to ensure this for our producers. I mean, I had jury duty last week and was having lunch on the street in downtown Bel Air, and one of our orchard owners happened to walk by, and that took up the balance of my lunchtime, was discussing the devastation and that there's not fruit available even in other local states.
Right.
A lot of it's going to have to come from the West Coast. So that makes it almost impossible for everyone to get what they're looking for. So
I appreciate that. Thank you, Joanne. Next up, Anufa.
Yep, Anupa with labor.
Number 1.
Thank
Good
you
afternoon.
so much. Good afternoon, Secretary. Anupa Varghese from Maryland Department of Labor. Just want to provide a few updates for folks. So first, in terms of heat stress, I think we'd be more than happy to do a presentation at the next subcommittee work group. Rachel, I will reach out to you after this. We were also thinking, in addition to heat stress, to also maybe do a joint presentation that covers our amusement attraction inspection, because that does also touch on the agritourism business. And so maybe doing both together would be beneficial. I will also drop in the chat a special webinar that we did last year that was specific to agricultural employers and the applicability of the heat stress standard there. We have also been engaging with the governor's office on immigrant rights, and I don't know if this is beyond the scope of this commission, but in that case with Gochi, we've been working with them around issues affecting immigrant workers, particularly those on the Eastern Shore. And I believe there will be a convening that's happening near the end of summer in the Eastern Shore, focusing on immigrant workers. And we're thinking about how can we do outreach and educational information awareness to those workers. And then finally, want to flag that we have been in, this is also along the worker lines, but have been engaging with a number of immigrant rights groups around our migrant worker housing program, which is overseen by our Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. I think there was a big spread in the New York Times just yesterday around issues with the H-2A program. And that's one of the things that we've been partnering with advocates on to get a better sense of how can we support those workers. Thank you.
Anoop, I'll say on the immigrant workforce front, we would be happy to continue to engage in those conversations. We've been really excited to continue to work with the governor's office on the impact on agriculture with the change in policies in the immigrant space. But would love to partner up on that and be, working collaboratively on that front.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nupa. Next up, Deborah.
Good afternoon. Debbie Herr-Cornwell with Maryland Department of Planning, and I'm happy to share that MDP continues the implementation and development of our sustainable growth principles that were signed by Governor Moore in 2025. And then with our 2026 legislative session, it included the adoption of the principles into the comprehensive planning process. So they'll now be elements of the local comprehensive plans. And while ag is touched by several of those elements, it's primarily focused on in our new land and ecology elements. And we are currently working with our sister agencies and others to develop checklists and guidance documents for the local governments as they continue to prepare local comprehensive plans, which address ag in the local land use planning efforts. And we do expect those to be completed by this fall. And then I would make a note also that as we develop those, the definition of agriculture would be very helpful. Thanks.
Appreciate that. All right, next up, Joe.
Hello, everyone. This is Joe Malone from Commerce. I wanted to provide a super quick plug on a funding opportunity that is coming back online from Commerce, the Manufacturing 4.0 program, which is set to reopen on the first Monday in August. This program is aimed at investments in Maryland's manufacturing sector, at supporting investment in 4.0 advanced equipment, and it's broadly applicable to food processors and value-added producers of small and mid-sized scale. So it's a good opportunity for promotion. If you're aware of anyone that might be interested in this, I will put a link in the chat for more information on this.
Thank you, Joe.
On that note, if you won't mind sending some information over, we're happy to amplify that on our channels, and especially sending it out through the Maryland's Best Network from our marketing and ag development team.
Okay, any other updates from GICA members or agencies? Any updates from partner organizations, friends and family?
This is Kelly Dudek with Cultivate and Craft. Quick update from our end. We were just out in Western Maryland visiting a bunch of breweries, wineries, and cideries. I will say that the agricultural tax assessment still remains to be a concern for many of them. So if there's any update that can be provided there, that would be great. But also really want to extend our thanks for all of the work going into any sort of exemption or help for many of our producers as we deal with this frost. I'll just give you one example that we learned in the last few days. One of our wineries, over 40 acres of vines, they are looking at likely a $500,000 loss this year, and not just loss, but investment. And that is, like Joanne was saying, bringing in some products from the West Coast, what they can find available, but also the labor that's going to go into hopefully getting those vines back to a place where they will produce. At that $500,000 cost, they also consider themselves lucky because their vines, while likely will not produce any fruit this year and maybe not next, they are at least still green, where some of our wineries are having to pull out their entire vines. So like you all have heard on this call, it's not a one-year issue. This is definitely ongoing. So just want to extend our thanks for all of the work going into your support, Secretary, and others.
Ellie, I appreciate that, and thanks for the update out from the field. It has been difficult to explain the gravity of that freeze to folks who are not in the industry, because the assumption is if Giant doesn't have it, you go to Safeway, and if they don't have it, you go to Wegmans, and you're scrambling around trying to find whatever it is. It's not how farming works, and so with certainly our perennial crops, if this year's buds are frosted, hopefully the secondary buds will still be there. But the freeze was so bad, at least for our smaller perennials like vines and some of the berry crops, that it actually killed the plant. And so if you're replanting blueberries or vineyards, it's probably 3 years minimum from planting next year before you begin to see fruit again. And so, as Kelly just mentioned, it's not always a 1 year crop. If it was your lettuce or broccoli or barley that was frosted, you may still have the ability to replant this year and get a late harvest, later than or smaller than normal harvest. But with some of the perennial crops, you were definitely out this year if your buds were frosted. And we heard with the orchards that even those that had early fruit set, so not only buds on the later varieties, but some of the early fruit set, some apples, cherries, fruit was killed too. Not the trees per se, although we're still waiting to find out for some that are severely damaged. But really, this was a devastating incident. So appreciate everybody's support and patience as we learn more about the devastation ongoing. Other updates, Megan, Todd. Actually, Joanne and then Megan. How about that?
Thank you. I'm sorry to go again, but I did want to mention, Dr. Mitchell had mentioned about his meetings coming up on hot topics. And if those dates can be shared, Maryland Farm Bureau would be happy to share those dates out in our communications. So if someone could send them to either me or our communications director, we'd be happy to share that information out so that we have good turnout from the agriculture community.
Will do. Thank you, Jen. Megan.
Good afternoon, and thanks everyone for all the updates this afternoon. It's been really enlightening. I'm glad to hear so much good and progress has come out of the meetings that we've had so far. For anyone who's not familiar, I'm Megan Todd. I work with the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Law as part of the Agricultural Law Education Initiative. And I get to co-mentor the Vincefield interns with Nancy. My update is I'm also working with another group of interns this summer, scholars, mostly students from College Park and a law student. And we are the grant project that we had started, ALAI had started last year through USDA to get a better sense, doing some research to get a better sense of some of the barriers that different stakeholder groups are experiencing when it comes to increasing local food procurement to institutions specifically. We're working on analyzing that data this summer and writing up a report. And then we have on September 2nd, a symposium event scheduled where we'll discuss those results and we'll hear from secretaries, including Secretary Addix, and then have some just generally productive conversation is the hope, and hear from other speakers that have been doing, I think, inspiring examples of state farm to institution procurement practices in the state of Maryland. So I can share the save the date for that event. We haven't opened up the registration yet, but I can release the agenda in the next few weeks. We are going to be hosting it at MDA with very limited capacity. We do want to get a good mix of stakeholders in the room. So we might end up doing some invitation only to open it up, and then space permitting, do a general registration. So that was my main update. And I also wanted to say, just for the person that did an update from Department of Labor in relation to know your rights in terms of immigration policy, I have been working with or coordinating with the UMB Chacon Center for Immigration and the Farmers Market Manager groups in the state to do some know your rights training. So if there's any interest in connecting or asking how those have gone, I'm happy to talk more about that too.
Great. Thank you. Okay, any other updates? Any partner organizations? We heard from agencies and some partners. Any of the groups like MACO, MML, if anybody's on. Macho. Always want to say macho. We're good. Okay. We do have some administrative work to do, and that is we do have a quorum, so we need to review and approve the minutes from the December meeting. Thank you. As I scroll back up to the top of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Joanne Chason made a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Nancy. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the minutes carry. Rachel Harrison, any other administrivia?
Only other thing, and again, expect calendar invites by the end of the week, but July 2nd will be the next subcommittee meetings. Again, those will be in hybrid format. We're happy to host folks back in this room, but certainly understand the summer schedules for folks who need to be online. August 6th is the next GICA. October 1st, we'll reconvene the subcommittees. And then December 3rd will be the final GICA meeting of the year. We'll be sending out a meeting poll as we get a little further into the summer for the tour. Hoping to do that after the next full GICA meeting, hopefully ahead of the subcommittee meetings so that we can, again, return context to a lot of the conversations that we continue to have.
One last thing, and it is entirely optional, although I would beg some of you to please join me in the challenge of visiting the remaining 13 creameries on our Maryland's Best Ice Cream Trail. Visited the first one to launch this year's trail, Pregal Creamery in Baltimore County, and there are 13 more, and I've asked the staff to book no more than 4 in a day because I just can't handle it. But I think some of you would love to help me out. So we'll send that out, make sure that GICA gets invitations, and would love to see you there. And if anybody wants to suggest hiking, as we do, Secretary Kurtz and our team have pulled together a hike and ice cream trail for our Maryland's Best Ice Cream Trail. So we will be doing at least 1 or 2 more hikes. If you wanted to add some other stops as well, we would welcome that. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Joanne, for all of the motions today, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Thank
Okay.
you for a well-run meeting.
We appreciate an efficient meeting. So that was a triple second. So anybody opposed? Said no one ever. Okay. Thank you all very much. Have a good rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.